Well, very good evening to you. Welcome to Fight Night talkSPORT. We're with you until 1 in the morning. Gives me great pleasure to say with me tonight, as ever, is the one and only Mr. Spencer, the Omen Oliver, looking bearded, beautiful, bronzed. What else can I say? And ready for battle tonight. It's a great time in boxing at the moment.
Absolutely, it really is, and I'm excited for tonight. We've got a great show coming up and want to get into, I suppose it's best by getting into you, Gareth, in Saudi Arabia. You was over there last week. How was that?
It was amazing. Another big event, 3 big events now in Saudi Arabia. Anthony Joshua commandingly putting himself at the top of the hit list for many people for either a trilogy with Alexander Usyk or the big fight with Tyson Fury, which I think is the fight that's on most people's lips at the moment. You've been fanboying all week. The Cape Crusader Simon Jordan got on your case, and I think he was right to do so on your very own show on Monday, where he hammered you over you saying that Joshua is now the dominant fighter of the era. We'll get into that. Could be, potentially. I know that. He was brilliant all week. I've got to say that. And what I like in that mix at the moment, barring Deontay Wilder and Alexander Usyk being there last week, they got all these giant figures in the same room together before the press conference on Wednesday. Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua didn't speak or didn't shake hands. Tyson Fury gave it to Francis Ngannou, and then on the next day at the press conference in this area they call Greece in the Riyadh season, in this amphitheatre, he's given it back to Tyson Fury, who's barracking him from the front seats. It all adds to the carnival. Joseph Parker and Zhili Zhang holding themselves brilliantly as gentlemen fighters, but Anthony Joshua all week, for me, showed presence and poise and the perfect performance to put all my P's together there to really produce an outstanding performance, which has gone several different ways. Yes, he should have done it. Yes, he should have done that against Ngannou. Yes, Ngannou fell into his hands, but Joshua produced brilliance. Mm-hmm. No messing. He's done 7 rounds now out in Saudi Arabia, and everybody wants to see him at the top of the heavyweight division in the biggest fights. I still count him as number 3 in the world, but judging on last performance, he's ready and looks fantastic under Ben Davison.
Absolutely. I think he executed a perfect game plan out there, and that was, down to Ben Davison and the team. I think what Ben Davison does is a great student of the game. He studies the sport well, and he comes up with these good game plans. And I think
with a guy called Lee Wiley as well, by the way, he's a great strategist.
Absolutely. So, the team there is brilliant, and it's been good for Anthony Joshua. I think we've always known that he's got the physicalities. He's always had the punch power. He's always been explosive, but psychologically maybe not in the right headspace, and that's because maybe he wasn't comfortable with the trainers. He just seems to have come together for him right now with Ben Davison, and I think that we're seeing that in his performances because he's believing in himself again, Gareth. And I think that was the missing piece of the jigsaw.
I think he knows what he is.
Self-belief.
He's as good. I will say this. I've always said this about him. He's as good a finisher as Lennox Lewis was. Mm-hmm. He's a fighter and a knockout artist. That's what he is. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's ever going to find perfection as a kind of nuanced boxer. He's an incredibly powerful athlete. He is getting better all the time. He's got a 90% knockout ratio, remember? So he gets rid of opponents. Tyson Fury's knockout ratio is 70-odd. Mm-hmm. So he's a boxer. And I think Joshua, as George Foreman told me years ago in an interview about Joshua, about 4 years ago, he just needs to decide, AJ, what he is and just do that. Be that powerful figure. But he believes, you can see it in his strut, in his walk, when you sit down with him to interview, he's content with who he is again. And I think that's a very important thing. But when we get into the realm of you saying, and he could, there's no question that he's got the opportunity now to be the era-defining fighter. Styles make fights, and he will find it difficult against Usyk in the 3rd fight, and I give him a better chance. We were both there in the 2nd. But Fury is a difficult, sly and unseen fighter with different skills who's not going to expose himself to that right hand, which Francis Ngannou perhaps did foolishly early on in the fight by switching southpaw, because clearly Davison and Wiley had said when he switches, throw you right.
Yep.
Because he's not going to know. He's not going to be fainting. And in a way, Ngannou played into his hands.
Absolutely. I think what we've seen from Anthony Joshua most recently, you know, when you go to the Otto Wallin fight back out there in December, that was the first time where I really saw it, where you can see he has installed that confidence and that self-belief, and he's stepping in with his shots. We didn't see that against Robert Helenius. We didn't see that against Jermaine Franklin. You know, he was throwing his shots, but he was holding his feet. He didn't have that confidence to go and put the combinations together and then go to phase 2 and really step it up. We got that now, and that's the best Anthony Joshua, because you're right in what you said there, Gareth, you know, about Anthony Joshua. He may not be the best technically, but what his main strengths are that explosiveness, you know, fighting with his heart on his sleeve, rolling the dice and taking the gamble,
absolutely.
being
not being tentative.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And that's back now with Anthony Joshua. And that Anthony Joshua, and that was the point I was trying to make about it, without, you know, fanboying Anthony Joshua. I said that Anthony Joshua is difficult for any heavyweight to deal with in the world, including Tyson Fury. And the reason I put Fury into the mix here now and give it Anthony Joshua, where I see it as a real 50-50 fight now, is because I believe that Fury's style has changed over the years. You know, if you go back to when he boxed...
He may be heavy-legged now.
You go back to when he boxed Klitschko.
We don't know.
Do you remember when he boxed Klitschko? He danced around him and he made things, and he bemused him, and he was an underdog in that fight, but he boxed unbelievably well out in Germany. Like, you know, he shocked the world. That Tyson Fury's not around anymore. You know, I compare him to, at this stage of his career, to like Floyd Mayweather
or Muhammad Ali.
Or Muhammad Ali later on in their career, where, you know, the legs don't move anymore. He's got that adaptability. He's got that boxing brain. You're right in what you say, Gareth. You know, he's not a sitting duck. He moves all the time. But the legs have slowed down. That gives Anthony Joshua, and that's why I say Anthony's got a serious shot now, because he's very explosive. He throws those shots straight through the middle, and they are, like you say, if someone gets hit by Anthony Joshua, they stay hit, they stay hurt, and that is where, and that's why now you look at, you go, rewind 12 months, you go, this is an 80-20 in favour of Tyson Fury. Now I look at it and say it's a 50-50, because Joshua has reinstalled, and you can only go off last performances, and we know that we'll never see Fury like that again, and I expect to see a much better one, and I believe he beats Alexander Usyk if we do get that fight happening on May the 18th. I believe he wins that fight, but it's an intriguing one now, Gareth. You've got to say that Joshua's giving himself a chance.
And also, what most of us will want now is if Fury has a significant victory over Alexander Usyk. Let's say he stops him, there'll be a clamour, I believe, for Fury against Joshua next. And if the powers that be that are running the sport at the moment, if we're thinking it, they're definitely thinking it. When we think things, the promoters are definitely thinking it. And it's an enormous fight, and it's a tipping point for Saudi Arabia in what they will have achieved in 4 or 5 fights to suddenly get the biggest fight in the world out there. And it is the biggest fight. And you might get 15,000 fans travelling from the UK. And that's, I think, is part of the package of what's desired here, to create those atmospheres, to bring the British fans. If Fury loses, or if it's a tight, controversial draw against Usyk, I can see them going to a second fight, which plays into the idea that there is a chance that Joshua may be out for 9, 10, 11, 12 months. Dillian Whyte fights tomorrow. Joe Joyce is fighting in a moment or two. In fact, he's just walking to the ring right now in Birmingham. That was a decent segue, wasn't it? And I wasn't actually looking. Fighting Cash Ali, and he's a big favourite here. We'll keep you across it. Do you think that a Dillian Whyte is right for him, or Joe Joyce is right for him, or one of those guys is right for him in the interim? Or will they take that risk?
No, absolutely, and they will take that risk, to answer your question, because I think that the activity is key for Anthony Joshua, and I think we've seen in those performances when you go, like, you know, Franklin, and then you Helenius, and then we go Otto Wallin, then we see last time out against Ngannou, you see the improvements, and that's through activity. Anthony Joshua is one of those guys that likes to be active, likes to fight regularly, and he wants to do that. He wants to stay active. He wants to fight in June or July again, you know, so he will take that, you know, he will fight again whilst he's waiting for this to pan out. But you're right in what you say, Gareth. I think that is what happens. This is all dependent on what happens Alexander Usyk versus Tyson Fury. If it's conclusive and one-sided and it goes away, I have Tyson Fury a big favourite in that, by the way, going into that fight, because I just think the physicalities, the size, and his boxing brain.
And he's had the warning in the last fight, hasn't he?
He's got a great boxing brain, Tyson Fury, and that makes a difference. Like, when you're talking about Anthony Joshua, you look at it and you go, well, he's big, he's powerful, and look what Usyk done to him, and go, yeah, but Joshua's not the thinking fighter like Tyson Fury, you know.
I absolutely concur.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.